25 heat check. Georgia gives SEC the power it's lacked. The Southeastern Conference is not the behemoth it was when the league dominated college football for almost a decade, but for the first time in a few years, it has a team other than Alabama that could threaten to win a national championship. Georgia crept up to number 3 in the AP college football poll on Sunday, and a case can be made the Bulldogs are still being undersold. The top-ranked Crimson Tide are now a unanimous number 1 for the first time this season and, after 4 ranked teams lost last weekend, Penn State is number 2. The Nittany Lions have not been ranked this high since 1999. As for the SEC, overall depth is lacking, but Georgia is providing strength at the top that has been missing. From 2006-12, 4 SEC schools combined to win 7 straight national titles, and there was almost always another SEC team or 2 near the top of the final rankings. But in 2015, the SEC was down to 2 top 10 teams in the final poll, number 1 Alabama and number 10 Mississippi. Last year, Alabama finished number 2 and next best in the SEC was LSU at 13. Last week the SEC had only 3 ranked teams, the fewest for the league in any week since 2009, when the conference's depth was so-so, but Alabama and Florida finished first and third, respectively. This season is starting to feel like that one, when the Crimson Tide and Gators were undefeated headed into the SEC championship game. Is the SEC back? Heat check is unconcerned. It's about teams not conferences, but right now no conference has 2 teams better than Georgia and Alabama. Number 1 Alabama, 7-0. The Crimson Tide is the only team in the nation ranked in the top 10 in yards per play, 7.01, 10th, and yards per play allowed, 4.09, 5th. Next, versus Tennessee. Heat check, just right. Number 2 Penn State, 6-0. Nittany Lions have been dominant. The competition has been okay. Michigan, Ohio State and Michigan State over the next 3 weeks will change at least one of those. Next, versus number 19 Michigan. Heat check, too hot. Number 3 Georgia, 7-0. Roquan Smith might be the best linebacker in the country. Next, Florida at Jacksonville, Florida, October 28. Heat check, too cold. Number 4 TCU, 6-0. After watching several good teams lose or barely get on the road, there is even more to appreciate about the Horned Frogs. TCU has won 3 away from home against Power 5 teams by an average of 18 points. Next, versus Kansas. Heat check, too cold. Number 5 Wisconsin, 6-0. Yes, the Badgers have played no ranked teams and won't play more than one before the Big Ten championship game. But Clemson, Washington State and Auburn just lost to unranked teams. Simply taking care of business every week is not easy. Next, versus Maryland. Heat check, too hot. Number 6 Ohio State, 6-1. The Buckeyes have looked scary good, but when Nebraska is your best win you might be overranked. Next, versus number 2 Penn State, October 28. Heat check, too hot. Number 7 Clemson, 6-1. The Tigers' resume really took 2 hits last weekend. The loss to Syracuse was the most serious. But that impressive victory against Louisville is looking a lot less so. Still, Clemson's schedule has been tougher than most of the teams in front of it. Next, versus Georgia Tech, October 28. Heat check, too cold. Number 8 Miami, 5-0. Fortunate? Sure, but plenty of teams have ridden the wave of confidence gained from early close victories to special seasons. Next, versus Syracuse. Heat check, too cold. Number 9 Oklahoma, 5-1. After this past weekend, losing to Iowa State doesn't seem quite so bad. Next, at Kansas State. Heat check, too cold. At least ahead of Ohio State. Number 10 Oklahoma State, 5-1. The Cowboys enter a 3-game stretch, at Texas, at number 23 West Virginia and versus number 9 Oklahoma, that will either end their Big 12 hopes or put them right back into the playoff mix. Next, at Texas. Heat check, too hot. Number 11 Southern California, 6-1. The Trojans keep winning close games against solid teams and getting criticized for it. Next, at number 13 Notre Dame. Heat check, too cold. Number 12 Washington, 6-1. The Huskies were held to 7 points by Arizona State and did not commit a turnover. Maybe in the next few weeks Washington will be revealed to have been a fraud, but for now it is an absolutely confounding result. Next, versus UCLA, October 28th. Heat check, too hot. Number 13 Notre Dame, 5-1. It certainly looks as if the Fighting Irish are not getting enough love, but the next few weeks should settle things. Next, versus number 11 Southern California. Heat check, too cold. Number 14 Virginia Tech, 5-1. The Hokies seem like the quintessential middle of the rankings team. Next, versus North Carolina. Heat check, just right. Number 15 Washington State, 6-1. It wasn't particularly surprising for the Cougars to have a short stay in the top 10. But good grief, that performance at Cal was awful. Next, versus Colorado. Heat check, just right. Number 16 South Florida, 6-0. The Bulls, known for their offense, are 6th in the nation in yards per play allowed, 4.12, and 64th in yards per play, 5.72. Next, at Tulane. Heat check, too hot. Number 16, tie, NC State, 6-1. Currently, the second best team in the ACC. Next, at number 13 Notre Dame, Saturday, October 28. Heat check, too cold. Number 18 Michigan State, 5-1. The Spartans have played good defense without creating many negative plays, 76th in the nation in tackles for loss at 5.83 per game, or causing a lot of turnovers, 40th in the nation with 11. That could be hard to sustain. Next, versus Indiana. Heat check, too cold. Number 19 Michigan, 5-1. Enough about the ugly offense. Watching DT Morris-Hurst throw offensive linemen around can be as fun as a touchdown, and it happens far more frequently for the Wolverines. Next, at number 2 Penn State. Heat check, just right. Behind Michigan State. Number 20 UCF, 5-0. For those who like to make a case against having preseason rankings, here's your team. UCF has been better against better competition than USF, but still 4 places behind. Next, at Navy. Heat check, too cold. Number 21 Auburn, 5-2. The Tigers dropped 11 spots for losing a close game to a team that is now ranked. Harsh. Next, at Arkansas. Heat check, too cold. Number 22 Stanford, 5-2. 9 straight games in which Bryce Love has at least one run 50 yards or longer. 39 FBS teams, including TCU, have 0 50-plus runs this season. Next, at Oregon State, Thursday, October 26. Heat check, just right. Number 23 West Virginia, 4-2. Could see the Mountaineers continue to yo-yo in and out of the bottom of the top 25 all season. Next, at Baylor. Heat check, just right. Number 24 LSU, 5-2. The Tigers have become the when-in-doubt team for voters. No doubt they have top 25 talent. Next, at Mississippi. Heat check, too hot. Number 25 Memphis, 5-1. That UCLA win is not aging well. Next, at Houston, Thursday. Heat check, too hot. Instead of LSU and Memphis, how about Texas A&M and San Diego State? _ Follow Ralph D. Russo at www.twitter.com weblink. _ More college football coverage, collegefootball.app.org and www.twitter.com weblink.